And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying to you. It's like talking to a parrot. Meanwhile, on Twitter, I tweet, going to commit suicide, it'll be Comcast's fault, and Comcast Cares is like, they fixed it. And so frankly, it's just changed the interface inputs, and then do what you were doing. Like with sales leads, if you listen on places like Twitter, you just catalog that lead the same way as you catalog other leads, instead of via email or via my free white paper. It's via Twitter search.
All right, well, next we have David Kenny, who's the president of Akamai, and he is responsible for leading Akamai's business operations, including the company's product groups, global sales, services, and marketing. Prior to this job, he was a member of the management board of Publicis Group, and he is chairman and CEO of Digitas. David.
So I think I was invited in the Publicis job, and then they didn't know what to do, so they said I could still come now that I'm the cloud computing guy. So I'm not human at all. I used to be human, but now I live in the cloud. The cloud matters to marketers, believe it or not. And since I am still transitioning, I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit about why I think the cloud matters to marketers and what's going to happen. So I think to just dimensionalize some things, right now the Akamai network, which does a little over a third to a half of all the video on the web. It's got certainly about a third of all the traffic on the web. And it runs at about 4.6 terabytes per second, which is the speed at which you could download the entire contents of the Library of Congress in 45 seconds. And we're doubling that again. So it's already a big transition. When you get to video, right now the video business is growing at about 34% a year. We expect it to stay that way for the next 5 years. That means by 2014, about 12 billion, the equivalent of 12 billion DVDs will cross the internet every month. And if you just look at the amount of video that crosses each second, it will take you 2 years to watch it all. So it's a big shift, and I think this shift of video means that within 5 years, television and the internet will be synonymous. And for everyone who looks at the internet marketing today, largely it's moved what used to be in newspapers, it's moved classified ads, it's moved directories, it's moved a little bit of phone and telemarketing, and that's about it. It hasn't really moved television, it hasn't really moved broadcast in any meaningful way. It was kind of crazy at Publicis because it was the growth part, but it was the last thing ever addressed, in a lot of brand plans. And that has to change, because when video moves to the internet at scale, that really means that it's where you start. And it means that people who work in this space need to take a responsibility that's like with television, that has been with television for some time. And it's going to be really disruptive to a lot of people who pay in TV, for sure. So that's one big movement, is video. The other big movement is mobile. And there I would say, mobile is more than doubling every 6 months in terms of the data that's going through it. And we do think mobile data traffic will increase by about 40 times between now and the end of 2014. And that's massive. And I also believe, given the trends, that 2/3 of all mobile data traffic will be consumed in video form. So then you've got televisions in the pocket and people carrying them around. Those are big changes to the way people entertain, the way people communicate, the way people connect to society. And many people are using the television experience and the social media experience at the same time. So they're commenting, they're talking, they're watching with friends, and we're already seeing that amongst young people, but that's really changing the way things work. Now, as I got ready for this, I was concerned that people would say, we have heard this before, that this IP television is going to happen. But I do think there are very, very real reasons to believe that it really is starting now and over the next 5 years. And we've already seen it. So if you look at a customers like Netflix, it's spectacular how much they've already moved from the DVD form to the internet form. it's a huge shift. If you look at the way sports are consumed, if you look at how many games of the World Cup are watched more on the internet than on a traditional television set, for many of the games, it was more of an internet experience in high definition at scale. If you look at what we're doing in the sports leagues, it's been huge. If you look at live events, it's huge. So we're seeing this happen more with live, big, paid events now, or movies that people are paying for, because the ad model hasn't followed, but the capability is there. And the ad model will follow, because the ad model will be better if it can be addressable. And the ad model has to follow because the people are moving as quickly as they can. They're using, these experiences are causing other people to see what a great experience it is. So it's shifting at a really massive pace. I'm going to try to watch down here on my own little screen. Why do I think that's going to happen now? Up until now, I think there was a belief that should happen, but it actually wasn't set up. Everyone kind of thinks the internet's really simple, that there are end users, they go into this internet thing, they reach the servers and it comes back. But if you actually know how it works, it's a mess. Because there are 3,000 ISPs, it's going through a lot of different nodes. The way to explain it is kind of like, it's kind of like a mall which has stores all over the place and not enough cashiers in the right place, so people are always in line. And so the things that are really popular get jammed and don't get out. And a lot of what we've done is build the algorithms to direct the traffic so that things can go from point A to point B much more simply. And that has cleaned it up. That's made it much faster for the video to get to the people, the video to get to the devices. And we're now scaling that in a network way, in an exponential way, not a linear way, so that it can keep up with this growing demand. So I think the internet's finally getting ready to carry all this bandwidth. And at the same time, the television makers, the device makers are switching. At the same time, more and more the content is moving, at least on the paid side, so it's starting to shift. As advertising shifts, it'll flick pretty quickly, where I think more people are watching television through an internet device than a traditional television device, somewhere in the 3 to 5 year time frame. And the affluent market will move first, which really matters to some of you who collect a little data to know that 20% of the people buy 80% of the products no matter what you're selling. That's a stat that you can make up too. So to just dimensionalize what is going on, today there are 700 million video users on the internet around the world, and they're watching about 10 minutes of video a day, and they're watching that at a quality of about 500 kilobits per second. The YouTube standard is 680, so they're kind of watching YouTube quality. And that means to make all that work, you need to be able to have peak capacity at 2.4 terabytes per second. We believe by 2014, just watching trends, did it come up? It did come up, just didn't come up on my screen because I'm not connected to this. Yep, there we go. We do believe the number of video users will increase by about 3 times because the devices are making that happen. We do believe that they're going to go to about 2 hours of video daily, and they're going to move to high definition quality. That means we're increasing the capacity of our network to deliver that by about 540%. And that's happening real time right now. That's what you need to see in the capacity of the internet in order to make it work, which means, this is a new word I learned, is 1.3 petabits per second. So our MIT guys figured that out for me. So we have a lot of MIT guys, and they are terrific. It's happening, right? So then you say, that's almost unrealistic, right? 540%, how is that going to happen? Well, I do just want to remind you what's happened in the last decade, and even in the last 5 years, to give you confidence that we are increasing at that rate. It's going to build it. All right, so it's building. So in 99, people who were digitized in those days remember that we crashed the internet with the Victoria's Secret fashion show because you were at less than 1 gigabyte per second. By the time you got to Steve Jobs launching a product, a webcast, you could get to 15.9, and things just continued from there, and things really started to be exponential around 2008 when Tiger Woods had a match where people wanted to watch it and had to move to the internet to see it. and you get to 440 gigabytes to make that happen. By the time Obama was inaugurated, when we had 7 million people watch that live from offices on the internet, you had to get to 1.1 terabytes, and now the World Cup got to 1.5 to have people be able to watch sports. So you see, this is moving at a very exponential rate, and as we expand, we can continue to expand nodes around those nodes in a very logical way and build this capacity exponentially. So that 540% number off of this scale is real. It was probably premature to promise it in 2000. We were doing that to get multiples on our stocks when we took companies public. And it took a little longer than you might have thought. But it's taken 10 years, and so much has happened in the last 5 that we're now moving to a new era. I think in those days, Y2K got people through the first bubble. The next big thing that some of us are worried about is we're running out of IP addresses, so there'll be another hole. There's always problems, so we always have reasons to invest in technology. But these things are deploying at an exponential rate, and we will indeed have the capacity and the devices and the content for television to move to the internet and for television to move to the mobile device by, I think, 2014. There is a lot of complexity to that. What I would also say is that there are technology platforms using the cloud that are simplifying it. So one of the big problems has been people don't know whether they're producing Flash or go right to HTML5, what to do with Silverlight. People at Microsoft don't know whether to do Silverlight or HTML5, so they have both. It kind of doesn't matter because it's pretty simple to transcode these things, deliver them through the cloud, and get them to all these different devices. So a lot of things are going to become simpler, which I also think will help marketers as more and more of this entire media and entertainment ecosystem moves to cloud computing. And I would say this continues to happen literally quarter by quarter. It's underway now for the paid content. The ad-sponsored content will come next once the people in the ad community accept it, or more importantly, when consumers demand it. I think the other thing that's important, back to being human and listening, we're further along on this in Japan and Korea than we are in the United States. What most people don't realize is the way the internet works in Japan and Korea, you have equal bandwidth from consumers back to the broadcasters as from broadcasters down to consumers. We have to solve that problem in the United States of America, or we will have a competitive problem. Those companies are learning to listen equal to talk. That's how brands will be built. And technology matters to that. The technology has to matter. It has to enable that. We don't have that system. We have a system that makes it easier to push it out than to take it in. I think over time we'll become less advantaged. I think that they were smart to make sure that it was two-way. And I think that's something we've got to see invested in this country as well. So as I go to sort of how marketers win, and some of you were at Alma, so you heard my lessons before, I think there are some things in the marketing community we can do to be relevant as television and the internet merge, and as it all becomes more mobile. One, storytelling will be the primary basis of competition for brands. If you're not telling a good story, they won't seek you out. It is two ways. They will choose what they're going to engage in and not. You're not going to be able to buy and interrupt them and make them watch your ads. If you don't tell a good story and they're not engaged to it, I think you're going to struggle being relevant. And I think the more the story can be two-way, the better off you are. Because people are going to just program their own playlist of earned, owned, and paid media apps. And media planners are going to be more like publishers and vice versa. For those of you with brands, I think realizing you've got to build a brand that has as much earned content as paid content is going to be key. Because once they're watching television on the internet, they choose what and where they're going to watch it and kind of move on, and they're going to have a lot more control. I think thirdly, part of why I wanted to show this sort of evolution of the cloud and how fast this is moving is I don't think people are using their time so wisely. And I think that time is the one thing you can't buy more of. And if you've got a brand, you're in a race against time because the consumers are moving much faster. And if you're wasting time on politics, if you're wasting time defending old business models, if you're wasting time on policies and putting boundaries around things, chances are